The awakening, the twin suns of Nexus 7 cast harsh shadows across the crystalline wasteland as Zara Thorne guided her salvage crawler through the maze of shattered mineral formations. Her cybernetic eye, a replacement for the one she'd lost during the Outer Rim conflict, automatically adjusted its spectrum filters to cut through the planet's perpetual electromagnetic interference. After 3 years of scraping a living from this desolate world, she'd learned to read the subtle signs that marked valuable wreckage from worthless debris. The proximity alarm in her crawler's dashboard chimed softly, its tone indicating an energy signature different from the usual solar storm residue that plagued the planet's surface. Zara frowned, her weathered hands tightening on the control yoke as she adjusted course toward the source. In her experience, unusual energy readings on Nexus 7 meant one of two things: either valuable pre-war technology worth a fortune on the black market, or something dangerous enough to kill her before she could profit from it. Echo, run a deep scan on that signature, she commanded, her voice activating the AI companion integrated into her neural implants. Scanning now, Zara, came the synthesized voice only she could hear. The energy pattern is consistent with a crashed vessel, approximately 6 hours old. Configuration suggests a prison transport, heavily armored class. Zara's pulse quickened. Prison transports carried high-value cargo, and the chaos of recent sector wars meant plenty of ships went missing without proper investigation. If she could salvage the vessel before authorities arrived, the payoff could fund her escape from this backwater planet. She crested a ridge of purple crystal and saw it. A sleek transport vessel embedded nose first in a crater of melted rock, its hull still glowing with residual heat from atmospheric entry. The ship's design was unfamiliar, angular, predatory, with energy conduits running along its surface like veins. Definitely not standard Federation issue. No distress beacon, Echo observed as Zara parked her crawler at a safe distance. Either the crew is dead or they don't want to be found. Zara shouldered her plasma cutter and emergency medical kit, then activated her environmental suit's life support systems. The air on Nexus 7 was technically breathable, but the high radiation levels made prolonged exposure inadvisable. As she approached the wreckage, her scanner detected multiple hull breaches and no signs of life aboard. The ship's cargo bay had been torn open during the crash, revealing a single containment pod among twisted metal and scattered debris. Unlike the rest of the vessel, the pod appeared intact, its crystalline surface pulsing with a faint blue luminescence. Zara circled it cautiously, noting the heavy security locks and warning symbols etched into its frame. Inside the pod, suspended in cloudy preservation fluid, was a man. He appeared to be in his early 30s with sharp features and skin so pale it seemed translucent. Dark hair floated around his face like seagrass, and even unconscious, his expression carried an intensity that made Zara instinctively step back. But it was the device around his neck that made her breath catch. A collar of black metal covered in pulsing red runes, clearly designed to interface directly with the wearer's nervous system. Echo, what am I looking at here? The AI's analysis took longer than usual. Biometric scans indicate the subject is humanoid but with significant neurological anomalies. The collar appears to be a neural dampening device designed to suppress specific brain functions. I'm detecting trace psychic residue. Zara's blood went cold. Psychics, or scions as they were officially designated, had been systematically exterminated 15 years ago after the Mindbreak Wars nearly tore the galaxy apart. The few survivors existed as closely guarded Federation assets or dangerous fugitives, hunted by specialized military units. Warning, Echo continued. This individual may be classified as an extinct-level threat. Recommend immediate withdrawal and notification of authorities. But Zara found herself studying the man's face more closely. Even through the fluid, she could see bruises and cuts that spoke of prolonged abuse. The collar itself was partially damaged, sparks occasionally dancing across its surface. Whatever this man had done, he was clearly suffering. Life support is failing, she observed, checking the pod's status display. He's got maybe an hour before organ failure. Zara, the prudent course of action is to save a dying man, she interrupted, moving to examine the pod's release mechanism. I've seen enough death, Echo. I won't let someone die just because of what they might be. The security locks were beyond her ability to bypass, but the crash had damaged the pod's integrity enough to give her another option. Zara activated her plasma cutter and began carefully burning through the containment seal, working with the precision her military engineering training had drilled into her. Preservation fluid spilled across the rocky ground as the pod split open. The man inside convulsed once, then went still. Zara quickly checked his vital signs, weak but steady. The collar around his neck sparked more violently now, clearly malfunctioning. That device is what's killing him, she realized, studying. The way the runes pulsed in sync with his erratic heartbeat. It's overloading his nervous system. She'd worked with similar neural interfaces during her military service, though never anything this sophisticated or cruel. The collar was designed to cause excruciating pain if tampered with, but the crash damage had disrupted its safety protocols. If she worked quickly, she might be able to remove it before it killed him. Zara, I strongly advise against this course of action, Echo warned. Neural dampening collars are not placed lightly. This individual was clearly considered extremely dangerous. Maybe, she admitted, positioning her precision tools around the collar's locking mechanism. But right now he's just a man dying in front of me. The work was delicate, requiring her to thread micro-tools between the collar and the man's skin, while avoiding the neural pathways that could cause permanent brain damage. Sweat beaded on her forehead as she worked, her cybernetic eye's magnification allowing her to see the intricate connections between the device and his nervous system. Finally, the collar's primary lock disengaged with a soft click. Zara carefully lifted the device away from the man's neck, revealing angry red marks where it had pressed against his skin. For a moment nothing happened. Then his eyes snapped open. They were silver, not gray or pale blue, but actual metallic silver that seemed to capture and reflect light like mirrors. His gaze locked onto hers with startling intensity, and suddenly the air around them began to vibrate with an energy she could feel in her bones. "What have you done?" he whispered, his voice carrying harmonics that seemed to resonate inside her skull. Before Zara could answer, a wave of invisible force erupted from his body. Her salvage equipment lifted into the air, spinning in slow circles around them. The scattered debris from the crashed ship began to reassemble itself with mathematical precision, metal flowing like liquid as it reformed into perfect geometric shapes. She started, but he was already sitting up, silver eyes wide with panic. "The dampener," he said, staring at the collar in her hands. "You removed the dampener." His voice grew urgent, desperate. "You don't understand what you've done. They'll feel this. They'll know I'm alive." High above Nexus 7's atmosphere, automated sensors aboard the orbital defense station registered an energy spike unlike anything in their databases. Warning klaxons began to sound as quantum fluctuations rippled outward from the planet's surface at faster than light speeds, carrying a psychic signature that would be detected across half the galaxy. Commander Holt rushed to the sensor station, his weathered face grim as he studied the readings. "Get me a direct line to Sector Command," he ordered. "Priority Alpha classification." "Sir, what should I tell them?" his communications officer asked. Holt's expression darkened as he recognized the energy pattern from classified briefings he'd hoped never to see implemented. "Tell them a scion has awakened on Nexus 7, and may God help us all." On the planet's surface, Zara watched in awe and terror as reality bent around the silver-eyed man. She had freed him from his collar, but in doing so she had awakened something that would change both their lives forever. The hunt begins. The psychic resonance continued to ripple outward from Kieran's awakening, and with each passing hour, his control grew more tenuous. Zara had moved him to her hidden shelter, a reinforced bunker carved into Nexus 7's mineral caves, shielded by natural electromagnetic interference that had kept her safe from predators and bounty hunters for 3 years. Now she hoped those same properties might mask a psychic signature that was currently broadcasting across the galaxy like a beacon. "Tell me about the collar," she said, watching as Kieran sat cross-legged on her salvaged medical cot, silver eyes closed in concentration. Around him, small objects continued to float and orbit in lazy patterns, her tools, spare parts, even drops of water from a leaking condenser. "Who put it on you?" "The Meridian Corporation," he replied without opening his eyes. His voice carried less of the otherworldly harmonics now, though Zara could still feel the words resonate in her chest. They are the primary contractors for psion containment and elimination. After the Mindbreak Wars ended, they received exclusive government contracts to hunt down survivors. Zara leaned against her workbench, pieces of the larger puzzle beginning to form. "The wars ended 15 years ago. You've been collared that entire time?" "Longer." Kieran's eyes opened, meeting hers with an intensity that made her breath catch. "I was captured during the final assault on Haven Prime, the last psion sanctuary." His expression darkened. "I was 17. The casual mention of his age hit Zara like a physical blow. "You were a child." "Children with the power to unmake reality are still weapons," he said bitterly. "The collar didn't just suppress my abilities. It suppressed everything. Memories, emotions, even dreams. For 15 years I existed in a gray void, aware but not truly alive." "Echo," Zara subvocalized to her AI companion. "Run a deep scan on neural dampening technology. Cross-reference with Meridian Corporation." "Accessing classified databases," Echo replied. "Warning, this information is restricted under the Psion Protocols Act." "Since when has that stopped us?" As Echo worked, Zara studied Kieran more closely. The angry marks on his neck were already fading, his pale skin showing an almost translucent quality that seemed to pulse with internal light. His recovery rate was remarkable, suggesting his psychic abilities were actively healing his body. "I need to understand what I'm dealing with," she said carefully. "What exactly can you do?" Kieran gestured to a piece of twisted metal from the crashed transport. Before Zara's eyes, the metal began to flow like mercury, reshaping itself into an intricate flower with petals so thin they were nearly transparent. Molecular manipulation, gravity adjustment, temporal perception shifts. The metal flower crystallized into something resembling diamond. Energy conversion, matter phase alteration. "And that's just what you can remember," Zara observed. "The collar fragmented my memories along with my abilities. I can feel knowledge trying to surface, but it's like grasping smoke." His frustration was evident as the crystalline flower suddenly exploded into particles of light that dissipated into the air. "I don't even remember my family name. They called me Subject Voss in the containment facility." "Analysis complete," Echo announced in Zara's neural implant. "Kieran Voss is listed as deceased in official records, killed during the Haven Prime massacre. The neural dampening collar technology was developed specifically for long-term psion containment, designed to create a state of living death while preserving the subject for potential experimentation." Zara felt sick. "They've been experimenting on you for 15 years. "Testing the limits of psychic suppression," Kieran confirmed. "The transport was carrying me to a new facility when it was attacked. Pirates maybe, or corporate rivals trying to steal Meridian's assets. The attack damaged my collar's suppression matrix." He touched his neck where the device had been. "When you removed it completely, 15 years of suppressed psychic energy was released at once. The implications were staggering. Every intelligence agency, military force, and bounty hunter in the galaxy would have detected that psychic eruption. They weren't just hiding from local authorities anymore. They were now targets for every organization that feared or coveted psion abilities." "We need to move," Zara said. But before she could continue, her shelter's perimeter alarms began screaming. "Echo, report. 3 vessels approaching at high velocity. Configuration matches Meridian Corporation hunter-killer squadrons. Estimated arrival, 12 minutes. Kieran's silver eyes snapped open. "They found us." Zara was already moving, grabbing emergency supplies and weapons from hidden caches throughout the bunker. "Can you control your abilities well enough to help us escape?" "I don't know." Kieran stood, and the floating objects around him began spinning faster, their orbits becoming erratic. "Everything feels amplified, unstable." "Then we do this the old-fashioned way." Zara activated her shelter's automated defenses, hunter-killer drones and concealed weapon emplacements that would buy them precious time. There's an old mining tunnel that leads to a hidden launch pad. My ship is small but fast. They moved through the bunker's corridors as explosions began to rock the structure above. Through her perimeter cameras, Zara watched sleek black aircraft deploying assault teams in full combat armor. These weren't ordinary soldiers. Their movements were too precise, too coordinated. Enhanced operators, probably with cybernetic reflexes and combat stims. Meridian doesn't mess around, she muttered, leading Kieran through a concealed passage behind her workshop. They can't afford to, he replied. A free scion represents an existential threat to their business model. If word spreads that one of their subjects escaped, it could destabilize their entire operation. The mining tunnel stretched for nearly a kilometer through Nexus 7's natural cave system. As they ran, Zara could hear the distant sounds of battle as her automated defenses engaged the assault teams. The noise was getting closer. How long before they break through? Kieran asked. Not long enough. Zara checked her weapons charge and tried not to think about the odds they faced. Echo, prep the ship for immediate launch. Ship status nominal. Flight path calculated to avoid detection satellites. They emerged into a natural cavern where Zara's modified courier ship, the Wanderer, sat concealed beneath camouflage netting. The vessel was small but sleek, with enhanced engines and sensor jammers that had served her well during her smuggling days before she'd fled to Nexus 7. Nice ship, Kieran observed as they climbed aboard. Military modifications? I had a complicated past, Zara replied, settling into the pilot's seat. Before I became a salvager, I was a military engineer. Before that, I was involved in some activities the government preferred to keep quiet. The ship's engines hummed to life, but before they could launch, new alarms began sounding. Through the cavern's concealed entrance, Zara could see the distinctive silhouette of a Meridian command ship descending through Nexus 7's atmosphere. This wasn't just a recovery operation anymore, it was a full-scale military assault. Admiral Reese, Kieran whispered, his face going pale as he recognized the vessel's configuration. She's here personally. Who's Admiral Reese? Director of the Scion Extermination Division. She led the final assault on Haven Prime. Kieran's hands clenched into fists and the ship's metal bulkheads began to groan under invisible pressure. She killed my people. All of them. Kieran, you need to stay calm, Zara warned as her instruments registered dangerous stress fractures in the ship's hull. If you lose control now, we're both dead. He nodded, forcing his breathing to steady. The pressure on the ship's structure eased, but Zara could see the strain in his silver eyes. 15 years of suppressed trauma and rage were fighting to surface, and his newfound psychic abilities were amplifying every emotion. Launch sequence initiated, Echo announced. Warning, enemy vessels are deploying interdiction fields. Our window is closing rapidly. The Wanderer lifted off just as the first wave of Meridian fighters swept into the cavern. Zara pushed the engines to their limit, weaving between stalactites as weapons fire erupted around them. Behind them, she could see Admiral Reese's command, ship moving with predatory grace, its weapon systems tracking their escape vector. They're jamming our communications, Echo reported, and deploying quantum nets to prevent hyperspace jumps. Then we run sublight until we clear their interdiction field, Zara replied, throwing the ship into a spiraling climb through Nexus 7's upper atmosphere. How long until we reach the hyperspace limit? At current acceleration, 18 minutes. However, the Meridian vessels will intercept us in 12. Kieran was studying the tactical display with an intensity that made the air around him shimmer. I might be able to help with that, he said quietly. What do you mean? Science don't just manipulate matter and energy. We can affect space-time itself. His silver eyes met hers. But I've never attempted anything like this before. The collar kept me from even trying. Zara looked at the pursuing ships on her scanner, then at Kieran's determined expression. What do you need? Time. And trust. He moved to the ship's central console, placing his hands on the metal surface. I'm going to try to create a localized space-time distortion. It might give us the edge we need to escape. Might? Or it might tear the ship apart. Kieran's smile was grim. But considering the alternatives, as Meridian fighters closed in, Around them, Zara made her choice. She had freed Kieran from his collar despite the risks. Now she would trust him with both their lives. "Do it," she said. Kieran closed his eyes and the universe began to bend around them.